Hi, I'm Bill Myers, and this is another one of my video tips of the week. In this week's video tip, I'm going to show you how to edit time-lapse video in Sony Vegas Movie Studio. Now, the method I'll show you is going to work in all versions of Sony Vegas Movie Studio, all the way from version 6 through version 12. It's easy to do, so let's get started. When I say time-lapse, what I mean is you take a still photo camera and you set it up so it takes photos at different intervals. And in my example here, I've used a GoPro Hero camera and set it to shoot a photo every 2 seconds. And it results in the video like you see down here. Now, this time-lapse video took over 30 minutes to shoot, and you can see the movement of the clouds, and you can see people moving down here on the beach. I'm going to show you how to assemble all those photos from your time-lapse camera into a video like this. Now, the first step is to go to Project, and then New, and choose your project properties. Now, if you're going to put your time-lapse up on YouTube, you probably want it to be a 1280 by 720-30p. This will give you widescreen and high resolution. Once you've chosen your project video properties, give it a project name. After you've named it, you may want to choose Manage Project Files. And if you do this, it'll put all the project components together in a single folder and subfolders, making it easier for you to manage later on. So once you do that, click OK, and you'll start with a clean slate. Now, before you start, you want to go to Options and Preferences, and then on the Preferences page, choose Editing. And then on the Editing page, look for the parameter that says New Still Image Length. And by default, that's going to be set to 5 seconds, which is 150 frames. Now, for time-lapse, you don't want to set it at that. You want to set it for a lot less. And in my video, I'm going to change that to 0.051, and that's going to give me 2 frames per second. And the other thing I'm going to change is where it says automatically overlap multiple selected media when added. This means that when the single photos are added from the time-lapse camera, the Sony Vegas will overlap them. Now, if you overlap them at 30 frames and each one is only 2 frames long, it's going to look pretty bad. So I'm going to overlap them the same way that I did before, 051, which is 2 frames. This is going to give a smooth overlap. Now, you may want to test this and just turn it off completely, and to do that you click that. But I'm going to leave it for the 2 frames. And then click Apply, then OK. And the next step is to import your photos. We do that by Project, Import Media. We go to the folder that has our photos in it, and you can see that I have a number of photos that were captured by the time-lapse built into the GoPro. And what I want to do is capture all these and turn them into a video. Now, 2 ways to do that. One is I can capture these as individual photos and drag them all up in the timeline, but Sony Vegas has a better way. Now, this works if all your photos are sequentially numbered. For example, if the photos start with a low number and go to a high number, this will work. In my case, the photos start with 1484 and go to the top. So I'm going to select that first one, and once I've selected, I'm going to come down here where it says Stills Open Sequence. Put a check there, and it tells me the first image is 1484, the last image is 2151. Now, this is where the good part happens. I'm going to click Open, and Sony Vegas opens a window that allows me to name that sequence of photos. So you give it a name, and then click OK, and it pulls into the media pool. And you notice here that instead of having the 400 to 500 photos that I had shot, it's just got one. And what that one is now a video of all those photos. So I can drag that one up onto the timeline, and there it is. Now, if I play this, you'll see that the time-lapse is playing, but it's got black bars on each side. And that's because the GoPro camera that I use only shoots 4.3 aspect ratio. And I knew that when I shot it, so I shot it so that most of the image was above. Now, to make that go to a widescreen, I'm going to select Pan and Crop. And on the Pan and Crop window, I'm going to right-click and choose Match Output Aspect. Notice over here is widescreen. And now that I've matched the output aspect, I can move the Pan and Crop window up until I fill the top of the frame. And now I have a wide frame image. Now when I play this, you notice that it has the widescreen image just the way I want. You can see the time-lapse effects on the screen here. You can see the clouds moving almost in a circular motion. And you can see people moving around in the background. Again, I shot this with a GoPro camera, and it resulted in about 500 photos. And you can see the results look really nice. Now, as I mentioned earlier, this only works if your photos are sequentially numbered. Now, if they're not sequentially numbered, when you import them, you have to do Project, Import Media, choose the first photo, go all the way down to the last photo, and then Open. And when you do this, you notice that it opened lots and lots of photos. So if you wanted to use these, you'd have to make sure they were all selected and then drag them up onto the timeline. As you might imagine, trying to load 600 photos on the timeline at one time requires your computer to have lots of RAM memory and a fast processor. Now once they're loaded up there, you can put your mouse on them and play. They'll play the time lapse like we did before. The problem here is if you want to apply pan and crop to them, you're going to have to apply pan and crop individually to each of the photos. That's why I like this first method better, because you end up with just one file. You can apply all your effects to it. You can apply any type of coloring or lighting or transitions or whatever, because it is treated as one file, where these over here is treated as a number of photos that can be moved around individually. Anyway, I thought you might be interested in seeing how to do pan and crop in Sony Vegas Movie Studio. I'm Bill Myers. This has been another one of my video tips of the week. You can find more like this at www.bmyers.com. And you can find even more in my 101 Tips and Tricks for Sony Vegas Movie Studio, which is available at Amazon as well as my website.